All right, recording has started. And this is the July 29th, 2021 Crossplane community meeting. The current milestone that we're working on now is 1.4, and we are sticking to our typical 2-month cadence where the next expected release date for Crossplane will be the end of August. So just about 1 month from now, kind of halfway through the milestone, I think. Okay, cool. Let's keep rolling here. So let's go ahead and bring up the 1.4 board and get a little bit of status on some of the recent progress here. So Muaf, here's an official informal welcome back to you to the community. We missed you very much. It is now publicly known that we all missed you. But you already got started back up on like the cross-resource referencing and stuff like that. Do you want to get us up to date on some of that progress?
Yes. So I updated that design doc to include some of the like updates that addresses the concerns, like adding a selector and sticking with the old API pattern. So I think it is pretty close to being merged. So I'm waiting for Nick to take another look, which will resolve both issues at the top of the review in progress column. And the last two are related to ACK PRs that I had, and they're still not merged. So I will get back to that and push Jay to take another look and possibly merge them.
Were there any things like needed from our side on those PRs while you're out, or is it like their team hasn't gotten a chance to like review and get them merged?
Yeah, I think they didn't got a chance because before I left like last week, I talked with Jay, and he said he was going to look at it, but I guess he didn't have the chance. So
cool. All right. Well, yeah, that's good to get those get some eyes back on those again and keep those moving. So that'll be definitely useful. Let's see, is Nick here? Nope, I don't think Nick is here. But yeah, Nick has a design doc out for composition revisions, which allow you to update compositions with new versions of them over time. And
he just joined, Jared. He just popped in right when you said that. His face popped up. So I think Nick's here now.
Well, Nick, I will allow you to speak for yourself for the progress on the composition revisions then.
Not much more than what you said. There is a design doc. There's also a partial implementation, but I'm not going to go any further until I get some review and we ratify the design. I encourage the community to give feedback on that document, have a read through. I did elect Dan and Muvaf as the approvers for that doc, so they're the ones who are going to have the final say on whether we move forward or not, but definitely want to hear what the community thinks first. As Jared said, I recommend having a read through the pull request. It is related to a very long issue that's quite old, so I recommend reading the pull request rather than the issue maybe first to get modern context for this problem. And effectively what it does is today, if you update a composition, every composite resource that uses that composition reflects those updates immediately. This allows you to update a composition, basically introduce a new version of a composition, and then update all of the XRs that use it in a sort of a staged, slow fashion to use that composition.
Awesome, Nick, and I will go ahead and add maybe a link here. Composition revisions, one pager, for a little bit more visibility on feedback there. Okay. That's awesome. So a couple good things, really good things in progress here. Dan, do you want to kind of get us up to date with some of the things that you had been driving as well too?
Yeah, so the introduce, let's see, what was the official name? Let's see. Exposing poll interval and external client, kind of the first iteration of that was just giving a flag on the provider in general. So this has been implemented across a number of providers. I think it's still missing in Azure, so I can make sure to get that updated. But essentially, it allows you to select the default kind of happy path poll interval for your resources, which essentially means that you can, control how often they're being checked for drift detection, which I believe is the actual description of the flag that we put on there. But you can run like poll 5 minutes or something like that, and that'll say, like check my infrastructure every 5 minutes. So this should be a pretty like straightforward thing that helps folks be able to control some of the scale issues we've seen folks running into. But I have another issue in proposed that will likely do more for that, which I don't know if we're in that part of the discussion, but that would be something I'd like to bring up today as well.
Yeah, it's like, do you want to go into some deeper discussion on like and try to make some decisions and stuff, or is it just kind of a status related thing?
More just a status related thing.
Okay, yeah, I think everything in the 1.4 board right now is up for talking. So feel free to bring that up too.
Cool. So I already dropped it in the doc, but and I think I brought it up maybe last meeting as well, but 2411, consider allowing provider partition on provider config. This is an idea for basically allowing you to run multiple copies of providers, and they're sharded based on the provider config. So how that would work, right, is the package manager would start watching for provider configs for each provider package it manages. And every time one was created, it'd create a new instance of the controllers for that, which the provider config is convenient because every managed resource points at a provider config. So if you wanted to, say like all of our dev infrastructure gets reconciled every like hour or something like that, and all of our prod infrastructure gets reconciled every minute, you could just give them the appropriate provider configs that were deployed with those settings. There has been a little bit of conversation on that. I think Muvafik and I had a little back and forth on that about things it would fix versus things it wouldn't. But I'd love for folks that are starting to hit scale issues to comment on there and say, this would be useful for what we're trying to do, or this wouldn't, or, you're dumb and I have a better idea. Those are all helpful things to hear. Maybe not the last one.
Some of them are more polite than others,
right?
But okay.
Still helpful.
Yeah. For what it's worth, this will also enable multiple IRSA authentication at the same cluster, which wasn't possible. So, for example, you could have one provider instance per team that is authorized via IRSA, like with its own IAM service account and role and stuff, without using IAM key, which is like, which was a requested feature from the community.
Yeah.
Is that not a node level thing? I thought it was like, one node is, one IRSA entity.
It's on a service account level, right? So pod level.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
There is some like interesting stuff around how this would impact packages and that sort of thing, because right now, and I'm guessing this may come up in this meeting as well, there's an issue I was talking with Hassan and Muvafik on today about adding something else to the controller config. The controller config is kind of this like large nebulous object that does things sort of, or configures your controllers is what it does, right? But we're kind of like, we've used it as kind of like a sink to put the things. It's like, I want to be able to do this thing. It's not supported. This is an alpha API. We can just drop it on there. And I'm interested to see if maybe we can start to mature that a little bit into, something that is a little bit more of an elegant design. And this specifically, right, if we're doing things like different IRSA for each provider config that's serving as a partition unit, we have to, figure out how to like assign the appropriate service account to each of those and that sort of thing. So there could be some interesting follow-on effects. The nice thing about this, I will say, and something that I think we're trying to keep in mind for all the designs we're doing these days, is this could easily be put behind a feature flag. And so we could say, this isn't on by default, but if you want to try this out, turn on the feature flag, and we can kind of evolve it incrementally over time, which is certainly a nice quality to have on this sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense, Stan. Did you, and so after your meetup presentation last night for Atlanta, for the entire city of Atlanta, did you get some feedback about scale and any feedback that was relevant to this issue too?
So I definitely there were a few folks that, like were asking about scale and that sort of thing. And it was like the general questions you get, if you have 10,000 CRDs, is this going to fall over? And it's like, well, yes, there are like, constraints based on the amount of memory and bandwidth that you have, right? Actually, what I've seen more commonly among folks is running into like rate limiting and that
For
sort
the
of thing.
providers.
Yep, exactly. And Muvafiq has a really astute comment here, right? This doesn't necessarily solve this. It depends on, right, how your provider does rate limiting. If it's by credentials, like the account that you're using, then this could help address that. But if it's just like, bulk for your overall account or something like that, then this doesn't address that. And to some extent, right, we're not going to solve cases where there's an external rate limit imposed, right? That there's just a limitation. If enough people are using this, right, we may be able to put some pressure on folks, but more likely what we're trying to do is give you all the knobs to tune it to work for your organization, right? So kind of like my response to that is, as folks can read here, is, yeah, we may not be able to solve the rate limiting issue, but we can do things like, group resources together to allocate the total, queries you can make in a given time interval, like used to the greatest benefit of your organization. So anyway, I think that's probably the way we're going to get around those sorts of scale issues. There's also some things around just like the rate limiting we do in controllers that can probably be better tuned and that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, I definitely want to caution that we don't look at this issue that is kind of leading with, hey, the solution is shard providers as the one place that we gather all performance things, right? Like, I'm not against this proposal. Like, especially, I actually like it for the the IAM potential. Like, I think we might want to do this, but my hunch is still that there's quite a lot we can do, even to allow you to tune individual rate limits and things like that inside of one controller before we need to go and be running multiple controllers and sharding and things like that. So yeah, we can do this just as a clarification for the community, though. Like, we may, if you have a performance issue, don't feel like you have to put all of the performance scalability issues as like comments on this. We may want to get like a general epic or something to capture all of those, or just ask folks for now to raise distinct issues, and we can sort of clean them up as we go.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And also that issue that we were talking about before this one about the exposing the I think it was rate limiting on the external client. There's also some people have dropped, I think there's like 15 or so comments on there where people have dropped like, yeah, I'd like to be able to say at the provider config, how often this is reconciled, or set like the total number of reconciles that this controller can perform, in aggregate. So like we have different controller level and global rate limiters in each of the providers. So if folks want more access to those, there's some ideas here, so you can upvote those or downvote them as you see fit.
Cool. That all makes sense. Okay, so then other 1.4 stuff. I think we're we're still keeping a kind of a handle on what are high demand community issues. Like the pluggable secret stores continues to come up. I know Diego put in a vote for that the other week, and it's kind of a highly voted for issue. So that's something that's still on the top of the proposed backlog here. Observe only resources is way up there as well too. Like these two are two of the highest ones I think that across the community has been asked for. So we're keeping those at the top of the backlog, keeping an eye on those. And for when we either someone on the like core contributor team can take it, or a community member that wants to take on some of these issues is more than welcome. We could be supporting folks for that as well too. But they're definitely high priority stuff that have been demanded or been requested. Anything else in 1.4 that folks want to bring up, or folks in the community that issues that are important to them that haven't been represented here necessarily? All right. Good. So we'll keep plugging along on 1.4 and with all the things we're focusing on here that we've been over. I think the board is fairly up to date. If there's other updates that folks need to make to the board, you can go ahead and do that async and kind of make sure that the board is reflecting the reality that things we're working on. Okay. Let's see what else. So I think we've talked over all of these links here in the 1.4 milestone planning. So I think that's everything for 1.4. So we can go ahead and move on to the community topics section. So first off, a whole bunch of interesting content has been coming up. Just yesterday, Dan was presenting to the city of Atlanta on it's like a kind of interesting topic. Kind of was a lot of content, about how Crossplane works, but also getting into day 2 operations sort of stuff at the end there. So that was that was super interesting. I don't think they've posted it to the YouTube channel yet, but they will put it on the Kubernetes Atlanta meetup YouTube channel here in sometime soon. Arguably too much content. I don't know, Dan. I think it was pretty useful for me at least, but it's hard to see that through a lens of somebody who doesn't already understand the project really well. But I think it was pretty good. And then there was a CIFO organized a meetup recently that about GitOps with Argo and Crossplane. There's a link here to the event itself, and then the video has already been published here as well too. So Victor was part of that, and Anais was there as well too. So it was really cool to get a little collaboration there, and I thought that was really good. And then a couple other talks recently. I think this one, the Victor's talk about how to use, how to approach applications as well too, and combine Crossplane for infrastructure, kubevela for apps, and then Argo CD for the GitOps portion of it. I think that was released like the day of the last Crossplane community meeting. So maybe we talked about that, maybe not, but it's still a recent one as well too. And then Dan gave another interesting talk about how to use packages for like vendors releasing software and distributing software as well too. So that was super interesting. Any high level observations, thoughts, etc., from the folks that have been delivering this content, and Victor and Dan and others?
Just let us know if there's specific things that folks feel like we're lacking content on. I think that composition especially is something that has been getting more coverage lately, which I feel like anecdotally, I feel like there's been like an uptick in folks coming to Crossplane and being like, hey, like I hear that you can build abstractions on infrastructure, as opposed to saying like, I hear that you can, provision your infrastructure using Kubernetes. And so definitely if there are topics that people feel like are kind of like undercovered and stuff like that, bring those up, because usually the meetups especially are basically like you can talk about whatever you want, as evidenced by my talk last night. So definitely feel free to offer topics that you'll want to hear more about.
Awesome. Yeah, I love all the content that's coming out now, and the meetups and the live streams and the podcasts. Oh yeah, and then Dan and I recorded another podcast on Monday for changelog that will be released sometime in August. So we'll put a link to that as well too once that podcast has been released. So a whole lot of activity. It's super exciting. Aaron was asking in the chat if adding the GKE auth provider that he wrote, if putting that into controller runtime so that other repositories and providers can consume it, if that needs to be tied to a specific release. And then my response to that, and so please someone correct me if I'm wrong, is that I think that we would put that logic into Crossplane runtime, right, Aaron?
Yeah, I believe it's the Crossplane runtime we wanted to move it into, since anything that uses a kube config can make use of it.
Yeah, so my understanding is we would put it into the Crossplane runtime, and then we can cut a release of Crossplane runtime anytime we want. I believe we don't have to wait to like an official 1.4 or 1.5 of Crossplane as core. So we could do a Crossplane runtime release anytime that gets in there, and then downstream providers like provider GKE or whoever can pick that up as they need as well too. So I don't think it's tied to any specific deadlines or cadence, I don't think.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, Aaron. All right, next note here is that we are looking for some feedback on our docs, our documentation. This link has been circulated for maybe a week or two. So I think though, Matthias, that you're still looking for probably collecting more feedback to come in there. So I have a link here to the survey. If you have any feedback on the experience around the Crossplane.io docs, getting started, all that sort of stuff. So feel free to click there and add your feedback. So for CNCF incubation, the public comment period was opened 2 weeks ago. By my calculations, today is the last day of the public comments period. So then after today, that should end and the TOC should be able to vote after that. I had previously said that, oh, when the public comment period gets opened up, we'll want to make some noise, but I actually went back on that and decided that wasn't the case. Because if you look at the posting there, it's really just kind of an index or a direction to the artifacts of the process here, to the due diligence document, to the pull request, et cetera. We've had a lot of engagement on those. So I don't think we want to, be spamming that public comment period post itself with like +1s and stuff like that. I think we're all good there. The vote itself, though, when the vote comes out, then we'll probably want to make some noise around that and show some support on that one. But for this public comment period thing, if you want to add comments to the due diligence and everything, that's perfectly reasonable. But we don't necessarily need to be showing a lot of support or on this post here, at least. So fingers crossed, but breath not held, I'd say, for progress with the CNCF incubation. It's been a long time coming, but hopefully the vote is coming soon. I don't think there's any updates necessarily on performance and certification stuff. When incubation is approved, we'll be able to make progress on that again and have a vote on that. But nothing new, I don't think, in the last couple of weeks. And then this is a new section that we just started last time, I think, and just around, interesting things going on in the community. So folks can add more links there if they want to, of, interesting issues or discussions happening in Slack or anything like that. One thing I thought was interesting is that I saw a link to it earlier today, just this morning, and I did not get a chance to look into it myself, but I'm actually kind of curious for someone's take on it, if they got a chance to look at it, is this Crossplane lives on it repo here. I'm super curious as to what that's, how to use that, what's the scenario here, what is, help me understand, because there's not a ton of content, at least in the README. Does anybody have a take on this lives on it thing for Crossplane?
Sorry, are you saying, does anyone have a take on the JSON library?
Yeah, on this, yeah, this guy here, like for Crossplane, it's, how can you use it? Is it, what scenarios does it open up? I don't know too much about it.
I haven't looked at it in great detail yet, but I appreciate that it exists. I like JSON. Looks good. Looks like it's auto-generated using a tool. We recommend folks check it out. JSON is a great way to write configurations if you don't like YAML.
Jared, there is also a link in the about section of the repository. If you click that, there is a documentation rendered. Right-hand side.
This guy here?
Yep.
Okay. Oh. Wow. Okay. So this is kind of just like an oh wow. So this is like you can interact with Crossplane's API surface level, surface area, using this like generated library. Is the idea?
Yeah, JSON it renders to JSON. So obviously, Kubernetes API is all JSON documents. So we can use this to JSON it. I don't know if you've used it before, Jared, but it gives you like a sort of a slightly higher level programming language than raw JSON with like loops and things like that. In a fairly sort of elegant way, in my opinion.
Oh, cool! Interesting.
It's like a mix of JSON and Python, kind of, to use.
Cool. Yeah, I'd heard of it, but I'd never used it or experienced it before. So that's pretty interesting. And so with this kind of thing, and the providers, especially too, like this would be maybe a way to generate configurations or compositions and stuff, perhaps with some of these functions and strong types.
Yeah, it looks like it. I could also see like it looks like there are libraries generated for each provider. I could imagine us having a custom composition that was powered by this as well.
Very cool. Huh. All right, well, that's definitely interesting. Do we know where this came from? So somebody dropped a link to it in the Slack and Crossplane Slack, I guess.
Yeah, the commits are all by someone from Grafana. Looks like maybe a Dutch name that I will probably butcher. Jeroen. Duologic is their GitHub username.
Awesome. Well, this is super cool. Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, so well, that's available, and if folks want to start using that to generate Crossplane resources, then that's also a new way to do it, and that's now available. That's great. Any other like things that like people have been like debugging or experiences within the community that folks want to bring up and share with everybody on the call today? Okay. Then anything else, like any PRs that we want to bring up for discussion or get some eyes on, or anything else? I think that's the end of the agenda here. So anything else that people want to bring up or get some attention on? All right, going once. Okay, cool. Well, then if that is the entire agenda and no other issues folks want to bring up, then we can go ahead and wrap it up here. All right, good to see everybody. Thanks for joining.
Thanks. Bye-bye.